So who wants to see a quick demonstration of what we're going to learn on Saturday? So we will be talking about how to prove that what we are doing really is good ABA, right? So let's see if we can just jump over here. So at Plus One Solutions, we have this magical form that we call our Get a Cab form, right? You guys should have learned about the 7 dimensions in your university program, certificate, or master's program. Lots of resources in your emails on the 7 dimensions. And we tried to make those real, right? Like I have said, I believe that you should be able to ABA absolutely everything. And folks come to me and they say, well, Jenny, can I count this? Well, Jenny, can I count that? Well, Jenny, they wouldn't let me count this. Jenny, they said that's not ABA. And I'm like, well, let's see if we can run it through the 7 dimensions. And if we can run it through the 7 dimensions, then maybe we can start justifying that, hey, it probably is ABA. And my goal by the time you guys are in a couple months worth of supervision is that instead of having to go back and say, wow, I did this really cool thing, but I don't know if it's ABA or not. I want you to think about, hey, I'm going to do this really cool thing and I'm going to make it really good ABA by ensuring that as many of the 7 dimensions are in it as possible. So let me just give you a quick example, right? So this is what happens. Somebody walks in and they say, Jenny, why do you think that's ABA? Why do you think you can count those 45 minutes that you spend wrapping up the end of the month of your billing? And I'll say, well, let me tell you, because I have completely ABA'd it, right? So here we go. Here's our form. So first dimension we're going to look at is behavior. The form gives you a question to ask yourself, right? The definition of behavior is that we use observable and measurable behaviors are targeted. So what I want to know is, what am I looking for or at, and how am I measuring it, and really for who? So this is going to be me. We're going to look at Jenny's behavior. And what we're going to look at is, can Jenny complete all of the documents and hours that need to be done by May 31st, or last day of the month at 11 p.m. for 12 consecutive months, right? So this is how I run my supervision business. This is how I track what's closing out for 1 month, what's getting ready to happen for the next month for supervision. So that's what I'm looking for. So who's that applied to, right? Applied means we're addressing socially significant behaviors. So who's it important to and why? Well, this is really important to Jenny to make sure that hours that have been paid for by my students really have been provided, to make sure that observations have been completed, to make sure that everything is signed that needs to be signed, and that we are ready to close out the month. Okay. It's also important to my supervision trainees, right? It's important to them so that I can ensure quantity and quality are being provided in the ABA supervision services that they are receiving. Okay, so applied, I would say check. Socially significant to both Jenny, the business owner supervisor, and my students. So technological, right? This means that the procedures are described clearly and concisely so that somebody else could implement them accurately. And I'm going to tell you, a lot of this is up in my head. And I talk to my trainees all the time and say, you got to get it out of your head and get it on a piece of paper. So my question is, where are the repeatable procedures written down? Let me see if I can pop over here. Look at this. I have this nice little graph. It's a chart rather, where I am writing all of this down. And I decided to get organized back in April. So I've been taking some data through April and May. I'm tracking if, who my students, my current students are, if their fees are paid, how much they paid, whether I've watched their observation. Did I create their invoice, which is due by the first session of the month? Did I create their agenda that's due the first session of the month? And did I sign their field work form, which actually is due by the end of the following month? So you see, I counted these things for April and for May, and I came up with some numbers to quantify this even better. So there are some things that should be completed by 11 p.m. by the last day of the month. That's what we were looking for. April, I did a good job, 41 out of 41 things. May, 38 out of 41 items were completed. So let's see. So here's the list, right? Here's where it's technological. Every month, I'm going to make sure that all of these things are being completed for each of the students. Okay. Then let's go back to conceptually systematic, right? That talks about that our interventions that we're using are consistent with the principles of ABA that are demonstrated in our ABA literature. So one of our ABA journals. So the question to ask yourself is, what intervention or what techniques am I using that I can show from research? If you have it, link your research into the chart. But for you guys tonight, I just made a list of some things that I'm using, definitely using visuals. I usually have paper and pencil and like to check them all off so that I can see what I'm doing and check off when I'm done, which is a lot of reinforcement for me. I do use pairing. Now, this is self-monitoring. So pairing is that your client understands that you are the giver of all good things, that you help them reach their goals and earn their reinforcement. I am totally paired with myself, and most days can sit myself down and say, Jenny, if you just knock this out, then we will go fill in the blank with something fun that I like. I also do pre-Mac, right? So I pair things that I don't like with things that I do like. So I make sure that I have my heater pad on, I have my tea or my coffee, maybe I have music or not music, depending on kind of how I'm feeling, just in order to get this stuff done. Self-monitoring is an intervention that I'm using, which is definitely proven out in our literature, and just data collection. Now, I'm sure there are probably 20 or 30 more things that make this conceptually systematic, but you get the idea. Then we also have to prove that another dimension is analytic, right? That means that our decisions that we're making are based on data. So when my bookkeeper comes to me and says, Jenny, how you doing, right? Are you caught up with bills? Are you making any money this year? Are you liking supervision? How's your business running? Are you ready to hire that next supervisor? I can base those kinds of answers off of the data that I have collected. So the question that you ask yourself is, where is that data being collected? And please, for the supervisor, link it here. So this little link takes you back over here. Whoops. To my, to my actual data. And I converted it into percentages down here. So 41 out of 41, 12 out of 14, 86%. So here's my actual data. So that if my supervisor wanted to come in and say, how are we doing at collecting funds and making sure that we're ready? And I know there are 1,000 other things that we could track. April and May went pretty well, right? So not only do we want to be analytic, that our decisions are data-based, but we want to be effective. We want to be able to show that these conceptually systematic principles that we're using and the technological intervention that we're applying is actually showing us some movement of the data, of the behavior change in the direction that we are looking for. So I graphed these 2 months of data for you, maybe. Where's my graph? It just disappeared. There it is. Be patient. Internet's running slow. So here's April, and you can see that my April data is 85, 100%. Here's May. You can see 90 and 100%. And then June, right? There are some things that are supposed to be completed by 11 p.m., 2 days prior to the first day of the month. So that would have been 11 p.m. last night. And I think I got like 4 out of the 41 or something like that. Just been busy getting other things done. But it's not the first day of the month and it's not the first day of supervision. So I still have a little bit of grace time to get it done. But again, that's why I set my goal to have it done 2 days prior, so that as I'm tracking this, that I get to see what's happening, what I'm doing well, and what needs some improvement. So you got to be able to graph your data and link it right into the form. And then the last dimension to take a look at is generalization. So our skills and our behaviors should be able to occur in environments other than where they were discretely taught, right? So I'm teaching myself this in regards to my supervision, my trainee supervision business. But how am I teaching and programming for generalization? So my kind of goal is that Jenny will learn to schedule tasks, complete schedules, and log on the tracker for other personal or professional items and activities. And if you could see my office, you would see that I have trackers all over the place. So actually doing this for my business is a generalization of what I have done personally for years and years and years. Now, all of this is to say that if somebody says, hey, Jenny, those 45 minutes that you spent reviewing all of your tasks to close out and your 45 minutes to open the next month, is that just busy business work or is that somehow ABA? And I would propose to you that I have made my system better by ABAing it through the 7 dimensions. And it's not about what I'm doing, it's about how I'm doing it. And so if I have ABA'd it, why should I not count those 45 minutes towards my hours? So thank you for joining me. I hope this gives you a little bit of idea of how this wonderful Get a Cab form helps us prove that we are actually doing some really good ABA.